We're cooking a full traditional Christmas dinner for 8. Turkey, trimmings, and all the essentials. We'll show you every chef technique you need to pull it off properly at home. Timings, prep, workflow, and the small details that make a big difference. No restaurant gadgets, no shortcuts, just one oven, smart planning, and great cooking. And it all starts with the star of the show, the turkey.
It's a 7 kilo turkey, so this is big. You know, this could easily feed a family of sort of, I'd say, 8 to 10 pretty comfortably, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, it is a big boy. If you've got a smaller bird, just try and reduce the cooking time accordingly. So for a 7 kilo bird, like if we're cooking that for, you know, an hour and 20, then if you've got a much smaller bird, then you'll be cooking it for something like 45 to an hour.
All the recipes for everything we're going to be doing today is going to be attached to the video, so you can follow along and cook with us. First step, turkey in the brine, 5% solution. We've got the 5% salt solution, so 5% of the volume of the amount of water you've got. Very simple calculation. We're going to whisk to dissolve all of that salt. Then we're going to go in with some aromats. So we've got some bay leaf, peppercorns, garlic, and some thyme. You can make this brine way in advance. You can make this a week before if you wanted to get ahead. And then we're just going to very simply just submerge your turkey into the water. And then we're going to leave this for 24 hours. But if it ends up being in there 28, 30 hours, it's not going to ruin it. But you definitely want to have a minimum of 24 hours. So the first thing I'm going to do is take the wings off and remove the wing joints, like so. And we're going to use all of these for our stock. And I'm going to do exactly the same on the other side. Obviously, we got 2 of us here, so when you're cooking along, make sure you got a friend with you or some family. The next stage is going to be to separate the leg. So Will's just breaking down these turkey bones, and we're going to use all of this trim that we're taking off the turkey now to start the gravy, the all-important turkey gravy. So what I'm going to do is, with one hand, I'm going to prise the skin over the breast like so, score the leg, so the skin pulls down, and then I can just slowly massage that skin down like that, meaning that you get your full breast covered in skin. Then, very simply, the structure is that the same of a chicken. Using my knife, I'm gonna go around the bottom, removing the oyster from the bottom of the turkey leg, and then snap it back like so, exactly the same as you would with a chicken leg. And then you're just gonna bend it and follow it around like so. There you have a turkey drumstick. With the all important, getting that trick around the bottom of the carcass means you get that extra little nugget of meat there, which is effectively your oyster. So Will is going to now debone this, and we're going to stuff it, show you the best way to eat your turkey leg this Christmas.
Just important to mention, whilst Jack was breaking that down, I've just broken down the giblet. So this is the neck that comes in it. You've got the heart there, you've got the liver. It's normally in a weird little bag inside the cavity. Often it gets thrown away. I think it's really important that you save them, and all of the time now, you want to be thinking about that gravy. So all of these bones, any trim that you get from this process goes straight into the gravy. So what I've done is I've just followed the natural line of the leg bone into the thigh bone. And I've just taken my knife and I'm just basically just slowly teasing it out. You can also, if you want to, just say to your butcher, I would like a turkey, but can you please remove the leg bone, because I'm going to cook it separately. And they'll probably know exactly what you mean, but basically you want the leg and thigh bone separated out. And then the reason we do this, I think this is the best technique, is simply because the challenge of cooking a turkey is, very simply, the fact that the breast and the legs are never going to cook at the same time. So treating them like 2 separate pieces of meat is the best way. The thing about butchery is, even it might seem challenging, like obviously to do this, but it is simple butchery. The blueprint is
Nature
there.
has shown you the way, you just got to follow it.
Very profound for a Christmas morning, that. The difference between turkey and chicken is that the cartilage on a turkey is so much stronger. So I've just separated these bones out now. This is all perfect for stock. We've got our thigh and our leg. And basically what you get inside is these tendons. And in a turkey, because they're older and they've done a little bit more waddling around, they are much firmer. So it's really important that you just break down these cartilage, otherwise it just tastes a little bit tough further down the line. So you can see one perfectly here. This is a good example of one here. So this is going down into the meat, and you wouldn't even notice this on a chicken leg, but on the turkey it's much more pronounced. So you can feel it with your fingers, and then I'm just taking my knife and I'm just going along slowly, tracing it around, and I'm going to cut down and just tease it out. So don't be worried about damaging any of the skin. So there's about 4 or 5 of them in the leg that all need to be taken out, and all of them are perfect for stock, so you really don't have to worry about wasting anything. It's just going to make the gravy taste even better. Just slowly tease it out. If you need to use a knife, that's fine. Really simple. You can feel it with your hands. Some of them you can just pull out, others you might need to use a knife to help. And there we go. We're taking about 5 out of there, and then I'm just going to feel the meat, just make sure there's nothing left. Any hard bits, just take your knife underneath, and like I said, don't be worried about taking away too much of the meat or skin.
It's basically the shin, isn't it? It's this shin area of so you don't need to worry about, obviously the leg is quite a big, it's that drumstick, it's the top of the drumstick area where you need to focus on. So don't worry about having to like scour through the whole of the leg. It's only at the very, very bottom end where the top of the drumstick is. The rest of the meat will be absolutely fine.
There's just a little bit of cartilage in the kneecap. You see that there? Go under there and just gently take that out. And don't worry if you get any holes in the meat, because you're going to ballantine the whole thing up. Now, just lastly to mention, obviously the thigh is bigger than the leg. So what I do is I just take down a bit of that thigh muscle and I'll place it inside the leg muscle. And then I've got a really nice sort of shape.
We're obviously doing this live, but there's absolutely no reason you couldn't do this the day before. If you wanted a bit more time to relax on Christmas morning, you could do this stage the night before, or get up early and do it and then put it back in the fridge. Completely up to you. So now we've got the legs have come off our crown here. We've got the breast on the bone. The next thing we're going to do is remove the back of the turkey, which is this section here. Really easy to do that. You're just going to hold it up with a knife. You're just going to cut down like so, and then just pull the back in the opposite direction to the crown, and it will snap back like so. Getting a knife, just cutting through that fleshy bit there. And again, you've got a good amount of meat here and bone, which is going to be perfect for our gravy. So I'm just going to roughly chop this up. As Will mentioned, this is you can easily get your butchers to do this if you're not that confident with a knife. So sort of roughly, all the meat and chunks, you want it to be sort of, I'd say 2 to 3 inch chunks. The smaller you get it, the better, the more extraction of flavour you're going to get. So once your turkey crown looks a little bit like this, then you can just go around and trim off any other little bits of meat that might be just sort of like hanging up, just making it look nice and tidy. You should have a little bit of extra skin coverage depending on how good your quality is around the neck. So this is obviously the bit that leads up here. You can leave that on. If you cut too much off, what you do is when you roast it, you run the risk of that retracting and then you're getting an exposed part of your breast. So if you've got any extra skin like this, I would just really neatly tuck it under your turkey, like so, and it's just gonna help to maintain that skin coverage all over the breast and keep that turkey nice and moist while it's roasting. We're gonna set that aside while we start to roll the legs out.
Inside these legs, we're gonna add a little bit of stuffing. So turkey leg is, you know, it's quite robust. Bash it out slightly, just to level it out. Choose a rolling pin. This will tenderize it, but it will also make a nice even layer to do a ballantine. So I've got this perfect little straight sort of rectangle of meat, and you can see exactly where I'm going to put my stuffing. Lay them out. I'll make a really simple stuffing mix. So I've got a shallot, which I'm just going to finely slice. Save any trim you've got, whack it into your pot for your gravy. I'm going to add some sausage meat, which you can just grab from any sort of butcher. You don't need a huge amount, just enough to stuff the legs. Then, whilst Jack cuts the sage, I'll just grate in 2 cloves of garlic. And this sausage meat, normally the stuff you get from the supermarket is pretty much ready to go. It'll already have the breadcrumbs in. But if you want to get some just minced pork, then you can do that, obviously. But just you'll need to put in some breadcrumbs to make it a little bit more like sausage meat. Bit of pepper in there, touch more salt, bit of sage, and then just really get in there with your hands, mix it all up. You could easily sweat the shallots down first, but they're going to get such a long, slow cook inside the leg that it really won't matter that much. They'll still be beautiful and sweet when they're finished. Then you want to lay down some tin foil. So once you got your tin foil, just put down a nice layer of streaky bacon, roughly the size of your turkey leg. We slightly lay them over each other just so there's enough, sort of no gaps, and it's nicely covered. And to be honest, this is actually optional. You could do it without the bacon. It just adds an extra layer of sort of flavour and depth to it, and also a bit of protection as it cooks. Because we're going to cook it fairly quickly. Like, I'm used to Christmases where my dad would put the turkey in the night before, and you just get this absolutely knackered. In fairness, he tried really hard. He was like basting it for hours, but the result was always the same. It was a completely knackered old bird. This one, we're going to cook it. I mean, it's a very big bird, so it's probably going to need about an hour and 30, an hour and 40 minutes. Previous videos we've done it slightly quicker, but this is huge. And these will, they'll take about the perfect amount of time to cook for you to finish all of the rest of the garnishes and get everything pretty much there, and then still to give it a really nice long rest. So there we go. So we've got our bacon, turkey, stuffing. Now we just roll it up. Want to try and make sure it both meets in the middle, and then don't worry if it looks a little bit raggedy, because we're just gonna roll up our tin foil and then make a little Christmas cracker. There we go. So it should be a nice firm log.
You're going to place that onto a tray. You can obviously make these smaller if you wanted. You can cut them in half to do smaller ones. This is obviously, as we mentioned, is a very big turkey. So if you're cooking a turkey this size, it probably means you're hosting a lot of people, and probably means you've got a large kitchen with lots of space. So we're going to put the turkey onto a tray, and we're just going to keep them cooking, depending on the size, until we get a core temperature for the legs of around 65, and then it's going to rest up to 75. Those are going to go into the oven, and we'll probably start probing them, I'd say, after about an hour to see where they're at. Next up, we're onto the crown. So we're going to cook this on a trivet. So a trivet is basically a tray cast over another tray, so the turkey is submerged off the base of the cooking surface. So we're going to put all of our turkey bones into the tray and the trimmings, and that's going to roast at the same time that the crown is roasting, getting a beautiful, deep, rich golden colour on all over those bones. Will's then going to go in with a very light Mirepoix in there as well. And what I'm going to do is don't lose your turkey. I'm going to separate the skin very lightly, very gently, from the meat, so we can add some butter underneath the skin to keep it moist while it's cooking. So all I'm going to do is just go in underneath the turkey and just slowly prise away with your fingers, just separating very gently. Be really careful not to tear the skin at this point, just gently loosening.
So into our base, we've just got carrots, onions. I'm going to add a little bit of thyme. Really, you want to be thinking about your gravy all the way through. If there's any veg trim that you can add to thicken it up, the onions are going to give a bit of sweetness. All of the trim is going to make it nice and sort of add a lot of depth to it. So it's kind of always needs to be in your mind. Just got some thyme in there, a couple of cloves of garlic. I'm just going to lightly crush before adding into the tray as well. Don't worry about seasoning at this stage. Something that we're going to sort of do at the end. And also don't worry about any sort of oil, because lots of juice is going to come out of the turkey, and that'll help to caramelize it all.
So at this stage, I'm just going to remove the wishbone. So underneath, once you've prized the skin open, you can see a very V-like shaped bone here, which is basically the breastbone of the turkey. So you're going to go down with the tip of the knife either side of that bone. Then with the very tip, you're just going to go underneath, like so, on the left and the right. And then you should be able to just very gently keep cutting up to the top of the bone, and then pull it back towards you. And what you should get, you might need to twist it round, and you'll get a little bone come out like so. Some people like to leave the wishbone in, because when they're carving the turkey, people like to break it, but it makes it much simpler to carve the breast off the bone if you've removed the wishbone. So we're going to take it out. I'm just going to place a few strategic blocks of butter underneath under the skin like so, and it will just sort of leak out and gently sort of permeate through that breast as it's cooking. Be gentle not to get, obviously the skin is thicker towards the bottom of the breast. Well, actually technically towards the top, around the neck end. It's loose, thinner around the bottom. So just be careful as you get to the bottom bit because it'll be a little bit more brittle than this thicker top breast. Fold that skin back under like so. Although the turkey has been brined, I am going to put a touch of oil over the skin. Just rub it in loosely and then just sprinkle it with some fine sea salt. And that'll just help to get that glass-like skin.
Are you always a turkey man on Christmas? You ever do a goose or a duck or anything like that?
I like turkey. I do like turkey on Christmas. It feels very natural.
Yeah.
But I've had a few Christmases where you might have like rib of beef, which is obviously it's a better eating experience, that's for sure. I like goose, but it's just so fatty.
Yeah, it's mad how fatty it is.
Like, I don't mind it, but I feel like turkey's just the classic.
I just find it strange that it's just once a year. Because for some reason it makes so much sense at Christmas and then no one else eats it until another holiday.
Ready to roll, and then we're just going to place that into our oven. We're going to put this at the same temperature as the turkey leg, just obviously because we want to show you how you do it at home, all in one oven. And this will probably take around about similar time to the legs. We want to take it out at a core temp of around 60 degrees, so it rests up, and then we'll reheat it just before we serve it. But I reckon a breast this size will probably take around an hour and a half. But again, we'll start probing around the hour mark. Yeah. If it starts to get too much colour, you can easily put foil on once the desired colour has been achieved. Next stage we're going to get going is two things. We're going to start with the potatoes first, get those peeled and pre-blanched, a nice early step you can get done while you're waiting for everything to roast, because they can sit there steamed for a while you get all your other prep done. So first of all, we're going to peel our potatoes. Will's going to cut them up, and then we're going to get them pre-blanched. Probably everyone's favourite sort of element of a roast dinner. And obviously, now we're getting into these big sort of bulky prep jobs. It's super important to gather in the help when you can, anywhere you can find it. Aunties, uncles, children, grandparents. The more hands makes light work when it comes to Christmas dinner.
Yeah, so just start off with cold water, good amount of salt, and then just with the cutting of the potatoes, we are quite specific in the restaurant about how we like it done, but obviously if you've got potato like this, you want a really nice, I think, not too big. You want a good sort of manageable size, but you've got to imagine that you're going to lose about 5% of the exterior to fluffing. So say with something like this, how I would do it would be go down like that. We've got one portion there, and then I would take it down in quarters like this. And then maybe if it's too big, I'll go a little bit smaller. The
key for me with roast potatoes, the way I was always shown by my dad, is it's all about the maximum surface area.
Yeah.
So you never want if you've got the choice between going up for a long cut or a short cut, go for the long cut. Because you don't want any round edges. You want as many flat, long surfaces. They're going to give you maximum texture once the potato is roasted.
Could be done the night before. This could sit outside.
You can just fill your sink with water and have these left in there overnight. It's quite nice. I always think it's quite nice to get a lot done on Christmas Eve. To be honest with you, there's 50% of these jobs we're doing now could be done on Christmas Eve. These potatoes could be peeled, turkey could be prepped and rolled, just ready to go into the oven Christmas morning. I
always go for a shoot for about 1.5 potatoes per person. Obviously you're going to get some bigger ones, some smaller ones, and it's not the end of the world if you've got a couple of left over, but 1.5 nice sized potatoes is a perfect amount for Christmas dinner.
If you haven't got it, you need to make sure you get yourself a speed peeler as well.
Yeah, Y-shape.
Can't be having one of those like your mum has. My mum has one of those ones that looks like a knife.
Oh no, they're terrible.
They are so terrible. Actually, if I'm at a parent's house and they have one of them, I actually refuse to peel potatoes.
I would actually take my own equipment.
You need a good knife, a good peeler. That's all you really need for Christmas, and a probe. But hopefully, get one of these or a probe in your stocking. Someone's always happy to do the peeling for you, though, I would say. Well, it's an easy job. You can just sit there and drink, or stand there and drink, and just peel something quietly in the corner. These are great potatoes as well. If other varieties of potato, what do you reckon, big boy?
Yeah, King Edward's classic, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, it's probably the most readily available premium potato, I'd say, in English supermarkets. I don't know about American, but King Edward, get it in Waitrose, Marks and Spencer's, Tesco's.
Some people always swear by having mash as well with their roast, but I don't get that at all. Yeah, that is a thing.
Well, your potatoes usually look like mash.
Well, so cold water is important because we're basically going to bring them up in this water, and then we're going to. The art of it, of a good potato, is where one more, is where you've almost taken it too far, and the interior is still just rough, just raw. Just past the point of being completely raw, and then the exterior is mush. So if you do it start in a cold pan, it has more time to sort of ruffle the edges. And also, it's important that we keep moving them around whilst they cook.
One more for good luck. Camera crew's looking hungry.
I always just use oil personally because I think it's got a higher smoke
I used to live with a guy. I used to live with a vegetarian. Don't hold that against me. And we did a Christmas lunch at our flat at the time. And he did his potatoes in veg oil, and we did ours in like beef fat. And his actually better.
Way better.
You get a better crisp on them, I think. But I mean, you get much better flavour. I always think goose fat and beef fat is almost sometimes better, just as a little drizzling at the end.
I think if you're doing a goose, it makes sense to. I mean, you get so much fat off it that it makes sense to do it. But
absolutely, yeah.
Right. So salted water. This is going to go on to boil on our back hob.
Good potatoes for roasting. You want something with a low sugar content. Because if you ever have roast potatoes and they have like a brown mottled finish, it's because of the sugar content. It burns before the potatoes gone crispy.
I'm going to start on the base of our gravy. So I got some extra chicken wings here. We're going to start off by colouring them in the pan. Then I'm going to add a Mirepoix, which is just a dice of carrots and onions, and then we're basically going to cover that with chicken stock. So you kind of think of it as all the flavours going on in there, and then we're just building up another layer of flavour here. So over to the stove. I'm going to get a really nice roast and colour on them whilst I do my Mirepoix. So no need to go crazy on like putting it fine. Probably going to cut it finer than the stuff in the tray, just because I want a nice surface area on these onions and carrots.
So one little tip, I like to we're getting all my veg prep done here, but obviously all the trimmings from the veg prep we can give to Will to go into that stock. I think a good Sunday gravy or Christmas gravy, you can really utilise whatever you've got. My old man used to put the potato water in the gravy.
Thicken it up.
Yeah, like when you parboil the potatoes, once you drain them, keep a little bit of that water, a bit like you would pasta water, and then use that in your gravy. It has like a natural sort of thickness to it, which I always thought was a good tip. Not something you can use in a professional setting, but you know, when you're at home just doing a simple roast, it can make a big difference. Okay, like Jack said, I'm just taking the ends of the parsnips off. They're all going to go back into the stock, so nothing's wasted. Always thinking about the end result of that gravy. So basically with parsnips, I don't know, you like them just roasted, right? But I kind of like to treat them like a triple cut chip. I find you get the best result out of it. So I leave the skin on, interestingly enough, and then I like to leave them nice and thick, almost the size of our potatoes in a way. You want to get them on a similar time to the potatoes because they take longer to break down in the pan. A Christmas dinner is different to a roast. What you do on a Sunday roast is sometimes, you know, you're cooking for convenience and comfort. Whereas for me, Christmas lunch or Thanksgiving or something along those lines, it's a celebration.
Yeah.
You know, you're pulling out all the stops, all the things that you wouldn't normally bother with on a Sunday. You're going, right, let's do it. Let's go the full hog.
Everyone kind of has their non-negotiables on a Christmas dinner. It's like, most people are like, oh, there's no parsnips. Oh, it's not Christmas without parsnips. So you basically just have to cover all bases.
And someone will never be happy.
Yeah.
Most likely Uncle Bob.
Uncle Bob drinking his fucking special brew.
So we've got the Mirepoix ready for the stock. The carrots, I've just peeled and cut them, but we're just going to set those aside now until we have a bit more oven space. You're going to cook in waves. It's like timing. So the first stage was get the turkey prepped in the oven. Next stage is, for me, is all the root vegetables. So we've done the parsnips, the carrots, and the potatoes. And then once the turkey comes out, we'll then go into the oven with the next wave. The next wave being those three elements. Next stage is we're just going to prep our pigs and blankets. A nice, quick and easy job. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but something you can do the day before or the night before. What I like to do is, so the sausages don't overcook, is just to smooth it out with a rolling pin so it's really nice and flat. You can buy some really nice thin stuff, but this is good quality, thick smoked. So just gently rolling them up so they overlap about a third. You kind of follow that guiding line of the piece of fat down the they should be nice and tight. You don't want them to unravel. If your bit of bacon is too long, we're going to keep all these little scraps of bacon and we're going to use that for our sprouts. And then I'm just going to go in now with my trim that I've got from the rest of the cooking. And then I've got some garlic as well. I'm going to save all my herbs for last. Whilst that's going, I'm also just going to get my parsnips on. Pan of water, again cold water because I want to ruffle the edges on these parsnips. As these potatoes come to the boil, let's just give them a good stir. So constantly stirring them. I actually think the way that we're working as well, like
sometimes it's an absolute shithole in the kitchen when you start loads of different jobs, like, and you have like 3 people, you know, doing different things. I always find doubling up is just the best way. Do one job, finish, then start clean down, do the next one.
If I'm usually doing Christmas dinner, to be honest, I'll have a very specific job that I'll let people help with. No, but I agree, like, there's nothing worse. I hate when people just, like, they just crack on, they just keep chucking the washing up into the corner, thinking it's just like, it's gonna be any easier just doing it later on, after you've had like a load of drinks and everything's not in the way. Gotta clean as you go. Rule number 1. Do you feel any pressure doing Christmas lunch, Will?
No, I mean, I've done Christmas lunch every Christmas since I was 10 years old. I used to charge my family money for it though. I used to go around with a tip box afterwards.
For me, it's my happy place, you know. Like, I'm comfortable in the kitchen, so it's actually quite a nice. Kind of find it quite therapeutic just being in there with my drink. And also, if you cook Christmas lunch, everyone is so appreciative of you. You're like the hero of the day. Bacon for the sprouts. Will's just going to dice that up now while we've got a bit of time. Save any extra bacon and sausage for your Boxing Day fry up. 1.5 each again. 1.5 everything. Again, we're just getting all our prep done, so those can go into the fridge quite nicely. I'm going to oil them now, just a fraction, just to help them colour once we get going. Don't need any seasoning because we're going to glaze them up once they're cooked, and also obviously the bacon's very salty. Into the fridge, job done. Save that till later. Constantly stirring these potatoes as they come to the boil. Parsnips are also now coming to the boil. Stocked, the onions are slowly sweating down. Carrots are in there as well. Yorkshire pudding batter. Does it have a place on a Christmas lunch table? What do you reckon?
Yeah, my family would be disappointed if I didn't do it. So.
Yeah, I would agree the same. 1 kilo of whole egg.
Chef.
Then we've got 750 grams of flour, plain. Just over 1 litre of milk. 750 grams of flour. Beat them all together. Ours is obviously slightly different to equal parts, just because that's the recipe that we found that works best for us at the restaurant. But at equal parts is usually a fail-safe method as well. But as I said, ours is slightly different. So we've got 1 kilo of egg, 1.1 milk, and 750 flour. So I've just got my egg and flour mixed together, and I just beat these together until I've got a nice smooth dough. Once I've removed all the lumps, then I just slowly add in my milk. Make it the day before. It's okay if you do make it on the day. It's not the end of the world. But one thing that I will say is really, really important is do not store it for some reason in a metal container overnight. We found this out over a bit of time that for some reason it just screws it. If any sort of food scientist can tell us why, I'd be really appreciative in the comment. Right, so I've got my nice mix. I've actually just started to work the gluten slightly in there. And now I'm just going to incorporate my milk, and I'm going to add it in roughly about 3 to 4 stages. Hand blender is so much better, but you can also do it with that. Not as authentic.
Less messy as well.
You can get packet mix as well, right? Yorkshire pudding?
Yeah, you can, yeah. But then again, it's pretty much just equal parts. It's a bit of a mug on. So these have all just come up to the boil now. I'm just going to reduce the heat. We want them on a nice rolling boil. The fact that what you've just done there is a key point to Christmas lunch, that you have to be balancing loads of different things. You know what I mean? It can seem chaotic at points, but as long as you remember what each element is at, you have to keep running, you have to keep dropping things and balancing the different oven temps. Right, batter, done. This for me is the last thing to actually go in the oven. Yeah, definitely. So it's really important that all of the other stuff is cooked before this goes in, because you need, if you've got that one oven, you need it at roughly 220 degrees to get the right rise. So this just goes into the fridge to rest, not in a metal container. Ideally as well, it's stone cold, Steve Austin, when it goes into the Yorkie molds. If it's really, really cold, it'll get more of a lift when it hits the hot oil. Batter, done. We're flying through the jobs now. Christmas is well and truly underway. Gravy's on, potatoes are on, parsnips are on, batter's done, pigs in blankets, done. Next thing, my least favourite job of the day. Why'd you say that? I'm not a big fan of it. We're only doing this for you. Right, we're going to shred this up, 2 mil thick. Do you want a bigger knife, chef? Yes, chef. There you go. So this is actually the recipe that we follow in the restaurant. It's one of those things that I actually hate, braised red cabbage, but when you have it as part of a roast, I do think it does have a place. Yeah, it does. Okay, so with the red cabbage, how I prep it is just into quarters. I actually remove the outside layers because they can be a little bit tough. And they go a much darker colour. Will turn anything that it touches purple. So you really want to don't use any other trim. This is pretty much the only trim that won't go into your gravy.
Okay, so cold pressed English apple juice, doesn't need to be cold pressed, can be whatever. So Will's slicing that cabbage up. How we're going to do this is quite an easy recipe. And again, sounding like a broken record, could do it the day before. It'll sit quite well. We're going to go 330 ml of apple juice. We're going to place the red cabbage into the apple juice. We're going to cook it on a high heat with a lid on. And what we want to do is get all of the moisture to come out of the cabbage. Once the water has come out of the cabbage, we're then going to remove the lid and start to reduce the liquid.
I think it adds a nice bit of colour to the plate as well.
There's just something about that like acidity that when you add the gravy and the potatoes and it all mushes up together, it kind of helps to almost balance the plate.
Yeah.
You know, but like, you know, as an element, it's something I'd never eat. I'm not hating on the red cabbage, you know, but.
Sounds like you are. Sounds like you are, chef.
So that's one large head of red cabbage there. Onto the stove, lid on, high heat.
With this gravy, you could add in, my mother-in-law adds in some Madeira at this stage. She adds like Bristol cream in there. But for me, what I'm going to do is just add in some cold chicken stock. This just, if you've got anything bought in from your local supermarket, it'll pretty much do the same thing. My aromats are going in last as well. So I've got the basis to an incredible gravy there.
So this would be equivalent to your usually like a standard 4-burner hob at home. We've got all of our pans going. Obviously, this is on a much bigger scale. If you were doing this at home for this many people, you probably might have to do your potatoes in 2 batches if you're cooking in normal sized pan. So now we're at a point where we can't really progress much further in terms of cooking until the first batch of stuff is coming off the stove. So our next stages is going to be a little bit more prep so that when the potatoes and the parsnips come off, we can then go on the stove with 2 more elements.
To be honest, I actually thought the parsnips were going to take longer, but for some reason they haven't. So it's important just to keep checking these things throughout the process. But basically what I've got on my parsnips is, you can see this like sort of ruffled edge, which looks really sort of, you know, triple cooked chip like. And the skin is going to keep them sort of intact to a certain extent. But this is what we want. We want them to be coming away from that skin, the core completely soft. And I'm just going to take them out now. They're almost falling apart, but they've got the structural integrity because of the skin. And I'm just going to take them into a strainer and just let them chill out for a little bit whilst Jack preps down the cauliflower for the collie cheese.
So Will's draining off some of those bits over there. That's Uncle Will, so shall I say, is in the corner, draining off his parsnip. One key point I'd like to mention around when you're doing all your prep and stuff is, if you are cooking for big amounts, say 10, 12 people, take the time on the preparation. Don't try and cram into one tray all of your carrots if you're cooking for 15 people. If you don't have the oven space, do them in 2 batches because you'll get a much better end product and it's worth the wait. So I've laid these out nicely so they're not going to steam when they roast, they're actually going to roast and get a beautiful caramelization. So that's just going to go aside, set aside there. And we're going to move on to the cauliflower. So cauliflower, just going to hold it upside down and just with a sharp knife, just go round the root in a circular motion. And then all of your florets should break off. So then all we're going to do is just break up the cauliflower into even sized pieces. I never like them too big, so sort of like small florets, some larger ones, some small ones. Again, nature's sort of done the hard work for you, you're just sort of breaking it up. Don't take off too much of the root. The root is going to add texture to the cauliflower cheese. If you're just cutting out the root and leaving just the florets, it can get very, very mushy.
I don't throw this away. I've got this core here. I literally just chop that down. Absolutely delicious. It's fine to eat.
So this is probably around about 2 medium-sized cauliflowers here. Probably we're going to need. We've probably got a little bit extra here. With our cauliflower cheese, we're going to just do it slightly different. This is how we actually do it in the restaurant. And we think it gives a much better result. But we're going to lightly oil and season the cauliflower. And instead of blanching it and getting all that water content in there, which can make your cheese sauce very wet and diluted, we want a nice creamy, rich cauliflower cheese. So we're going to roast the cauliflower in the oven instead of blanching it. So just give it a good bit of oil, good seasoning, and then just onto a roasting tray. And then when we put our carrots and stuff in, we're going to put the cauliflower in as well. Nice high heat. and it's going to blister and char and roast on the outside, and then we'll add the cheese sauce to it. So very basically the same as a traditional cauliflower cheese, but it's just roasting it instead of blanching the cauliflower. So we've almost got a little queue waiting to go into the oven, which is kind of what you want, really. This is all in that preparation, all in the timing. You're almost planning sort of half an hour, 45 minutes ahead all the time, knowing what's going to go in the oven where, what's going on the stove next. Fluffing parsnips.
Get them ready for the oven. And then, so you can see what I'm doing here. I'm just quite heavy-handedly breaking them up and beating them. And what you'll get is these, like, the skin will start to come off. That's absolutely fine. That's going to get really nice and crispy. Just steaming them like this in a colander starts to get rid of some of that excess moisture. And don't be alarmed. Don't be alarmed if they look a little bit mushy at this stage. One thing I tell my chefs is that you'll naturally lose about one fifth of the finished product when you bash and beat it. And that's a good guide because you actually really want to make sure that you've got the edges are ruffled enough. With the parsnips particularly, they will sort of come back together and you'll get all these like really delicious little crispy edges. That is, obviously you'd look at that and you would be like, oh shit, I've overcooked them, but they will be absolutely delicious. So I'm just gonna add in some oil, just plain oil. The water was already salted, so I'm not gonna season them at this stage. It's not a small amount of oil because you want them to crisp. And then I'm just gonna take them out and lay them into that oil, ready to go into the oven. There's a little bit more oil on top. Try and make sure that everything's covered in a good layer of oil.
That's what we're looking for here. All those crevices are opened up on the potato. So the next stage is crucial stage. So what we're gonna do is we're going to drain them, but we're not gonna touch them for about 20 minutes. Dry, you can see the amount of steam coming off them. But right now, the surface of the potato is wet and damp. And as it dries, you can already see in a matter of seconds, these white pockets of potato which are now drying out from the steam, and that's what we want. And to help with the drying process, I'm just gonna season all over the potatoes quite generously, trying to get a nice even dispersion of the salt, and just gonna leave it like that. Oh, smells so good. Right, chef, do you want to probe our turkey for us?
Oh, nice and hot.
Ready to go?
Yeah, 76 degrees.
Look at that, baby.
Okay, what have we got on the breast? Right, when you're probing it, just really probe right down into the center. So the pretty much the rawest part is going to be this part near the bone. So you can see I've got internal 42 degrees. That's just a little bit too low. But if you look at the rest of it, like when I probe it there, it's on 70 degrees. So, you know, you kind of need to use a little bit of your instinct here. At this point, I would just turn the oven down slightly so you can get a nice even cook on it. So our leg rolls went in for about an hour. We're gonna glaze them up and finish them at the same time when we reheat our turkey.
Your turkey breast is gonna go back in the oven. We're gonna turn the oven down to 145 and give it another 20 minutes.
We're gonna make a simple bechamel. So my butter's gonna go in. So roughly about 250 grams of butter. Melt that down, equal parts flour, and then we're just bringing up our milk. It's got 1 onion in there, some bay leaves, and then our red cabbage properly started to break down now, and it's steaming out quite a lot. So I'm just going to turn over to make sure it's going to cook nice and evenly. And now I think we can start to leave the lid off. So I add about 150 ml of wine, which is about a large glass. So 5 grams, or like basically a small teaspoon of ginger, cinnamon, nutmeg, tiny bit more nutmeg in our bechamel as well. Touch of salt goes in there now. Touch of sugar goes in there. Just turn it all over. And then we're cooking this down roughly with all your quantities. 1 part butter, 1 part flour, and then 10 part of your milk. Jack's grated all of our cheese here, and we've got some sort of mustard to give it an extra bit of punch. This cheese is just a cheddar.
Cheddar and Gruyere.
And then we're going to add a bit of Gruyere for richness as well. Always going with warm milk, as it makes a really nice thick bechamel, and will stop it from sort of any chance of it splitting out. So I added that in 4 stages.
Okay, turkey timer has gone off. So we're looking for our core temp. Nice, looking good. Again, as Will mentioned earlier, we're looking for that average. Some bits will be a bit higher. Obviously down here is going to be a bit over. But that is looking a good average. So It's one of those things you have to go with your best guess, and then you have to monitor the temperature as it's resting. But we're close here, I think. We've got some areas here which are sort of high 60s, and you've got some areas here which are 58, 59 in the center. So I'm gonna take that out to rest now. 220, gonna get this oven super hot, put my empty tray in, ready for my potatoes. At the same time, as putting the empty tray for the potatoes, I'm gonna put in my cauliflower and start that roasting. This should take, I would say, somewhere between around 15 to 20 minutes for the cauliflower.
We're looking at this beautiful, smooth consistency. Quite thick because cauliflower does let out a little bit of moisture. And then we're going to allow this to cook out for around about 8 to 12 minutes on a very low heat. Just make sure it doesn't catch on the bottom.
Right, things are ramping up now. There's loads going on. So we've got our potatoes that have been now, as you can see, they've been air drying. So we put the salt on these. These are perfect. Nicely blanched, yeah?
Chef.
So what you're looking for here is you can see the edges are sort of, they're dried out. The potatoes have almost gone fluffy rather than wet. They're cool to the touch. There you go, you can see that, all those crevices opening up. This next stage, you need to be gentle. When you see people hammering their potatoes like this, it means the potato is, I would say, is not cooked enough. So once the potatoes are bang on, it's just a gentle fluffing, like so. So lid on top, and then you're just looking to almost toss. As you can see, look, that's 2 tosses. And already you've got these beautiful little crevices all over the potato. Now, the harder you fluff them, or the more you fluff them, you're gonna get a better result, but you will lose more potato. So it's a fine line between the two. So I'm gonna give these probably 2 more, but again, it's a lift and a drop rather than a hammer. What do you reckon, Will? Touch more? I'm pretty happy with that.
Oh, I reckon go a tiny bit further, chef.
Oh, he's brave.
Fortune favours the brave.
I reckon that's about bang on. I'm not going to take it any further. So there you have it. That's our potatoes.
All right, so we're 2 hours in now. Just wrapping Jack's turkey for him. Don't have to wrap it too tight, but this will just allow it to steam, continue cooking, and rest nicely.
I think the key point is letting it, if you cover it as soon as it comes out of the oven, it's going to steam that skin. So you want to let the initial bit of heat just come off the turkey and then wrap it. Very important step, that. Okay, so my tray has been in the oven heating through for about anywhere between 5 to 10 minutes should be good. I'm going to place that tray out in a separate pan. What we've done is we've heated up about 300 or 400 ml of hot oil. And what we're going to do is it's a much safer way of putting your oil into the tray than moving a really large tray of oil. So you're going to remove the tray from the oven. There's a tiny bit of oil in this tray just to stop the potatoes sticking initially to the base. And then what we're going to do is we're going to then hand select the potatoes out of the steamer tray and into the hot oil, and you should get that sizzle. That's what we're after. And you can then nicely, evenly disperse them around the tray. Doing it like this means that you won't necessarily get all that mash, those really mashed up bits of potato in the base. Now, the reason you wouldn't want those is because what they can do is over time, when these potatoes are cooking, they will burn. And you'll get little black or really dark brown blemishes all over your potatoes, which you don't want. Nicely laid out. Again, don't overcrowd the tray. It can be full, the tray, because you're going to cook these potatoes low and slow, but you don't want them sitting on top of each other too much. So we're going to fill up this tray. Now, we're not going to put any aromats in at this stage. What we are going to do is we're going to add loads of garlic, thyme later on, but not until the potatoes are about 75% of the way cooked. This is going to ensure that we get maximum flavour without the herbs burning. So I would say you don't want to fill up your tray any more than this. This is kind of maximum, so we've actually sort of nailed it on the amount. You can keep all this potato here that you've got. This is sort of good for like Boxing Day, bubble and squeak or something like that. I'm going to give another little pinch of salt. It's good to season throughout the cooking process, not just at the end.
Okay, so with the hot oil, just basically trying to hit every single spot on those potatoes. I like doing this because quite often what you do is you'll cook them in the hot fat and then you'll have to turn them over, but turning them damages them. So this hot layer of hot oil like this, make sure that every potato's kind of been hit. And then you don't have to turn it over for the first somewhere in the region of 35 minutes because it's nicely, each potato you know is covered with oil.
So those going in. We're going to keep the oven high 220. The cauliflower is in the oven, probably about 10 minutes away. I'm now gonna add my parsnips into the oven as well. So in the oven right now, we have potatoes, parsnips, and the cauliflower.
Nice. Okay, so we have now cooked out our bechamel base for around about 15 minutes. You basically, what you're looking for when you taste this, you rub it against the roof of your mouth. If you taste any loose flour, it's not cooked out long enough. That's absolutely spot on. Does need a touch of salt, but now my mix of cheese is going in, my cheddar and my Gruyere. And then once the cheese goes in, you really don't want to cook it out for too much longer. You're just looking to melt that cheese. A touch of salt goes in at this stage. And then last, you want to try and not cook it. So once the cheese is fully melted, whole grain goes in, same amount of Dijon. So there we go. And then as soon as that's done, that just goes aside and we leave that, wait for our cauliflower. Okay, so next up, turn our attention to our roasting tray. So what I'm doing is just scraping away any of the dark bit because I don't want that to continue to cook. So at the bottom there is basically just a little bit of the butter that we had in our tray to keep our turkey breast moist, and any fat that's come out of the bird, which in this case is a good amount of flour into your tray. Sort of an equal kind of quantity, maybe a little bit less. Probably a third of the amount of fat. I'm just gonna mix it with the bones. Got this, like, basically this, you know, it's kind of a roux-based slurry that's gonna just cook along nicely. Now I don't want it to be too thick, the gravy, but obviously people's families like it different ways. For me, I don't like it to be too intense because I kind of feel like there's so much going on with the rest of the roast dinner that you don't really need a big, thick, gloopy gravy. I will deglaze this tray with some form of booze. Probably what most people have to hand is some white wine, so I'll just use a little bit of white wine. And then this is just purely to remove any sort of fond that's left on the base of that tray. And everything is just gonna go into that pot. We're gonna cook that out for around about 5 to 10 minutes, and then we're gonna pass it off, and then we'll adjust the consistency by potentially reducing a little bit more, just on a medium. The whole thing is just on a medium heat. You don't really want it to be boiling away too hard. So just bubbling that together. And basically all I'm doing now is just ensuring that I get all of the flavor that's gone on in that tray into my stock. So nothing is gonna be wasted.
Right, so our cauliflower is now ready. So we've got a nice bit of color on there. Been in sort of anywhere between 15 to 20 minutes for your cauliflower. You want it to still have a slight bite to it, a little bit crunchy, but you just get all that added flavor of those little bits of roasted char on the outside of the cauliflower. Will is now gonna add the bechamel to this, mix it all together before placing it into your dish, ready to bake later. So the carrots are gonna go into the oven, touch more oil, and they're gonna go into the oven where the cauliflower was. And now we're gonna reduce that temperature down to 200 degrees.
So for the cauliflower cheese, I always like to add the bechamel into the cauliflower, give it a good mix. Once you know that you've got a really nice covering on the cauliflower, and then we whack it into our dish, pat it down nicely. You want a nice even sort of layer of cauliflower because we're going to gratinate it on the top. Doesn't matter if some sort of bits are poking out because then you'll get this really delicious sort of roasted crispy bits on the top. Got a nice even layer as much as we can. I like to go on with a ladle afterwards with a little bit more of that bechamel. Bit more cheese on top, not too much, so otherwise it starts to split out and looks a little bit split. Nice, just even layer of cheese on top. Can be cheddar, can be Gruyere.
Two classic sauces to go alongside your traditional Christmas lunch. So we're going to be making bread sauce and cranberry sauce. For the cranberry sauce, I'm going to start off with 150 grams of sugar and 100 grams of water. Just going to place everything together. So we're going to do the zest of 2 oranges, and we're also going to do the segments of 2 oranges that we're going to segment and then just finely dice to get mixed through the cranberry sauce at the end. I'm going to take 1 banana shallot and just finely dice it. Add that into our water and sugar mix. The shallot is just going to give it a nice allium flavour and also just add a little bit more texture to the sauce. Then we're going to go in with the cranberries just into the same pan. And then we're going to add some picked thyme or just stripped thyme. Just some finely chopped thyme. You don't want a massive amount because obviously there's quite a lot of things have this sort of thyme notes in it. And then we're just gonna leave that on the side of the stove, ticking over. You might need some more water as it's cooking. Depending on sort of the cranberries, they can change in water content. And I'm just gonna leave that ticking over on the side of the stove. And what you're looking to do is the cranberries to sort of swell up and then burst. And then you can really take it as far as you want really from there. You can leave the cranberries sort of whole, or you can sort of keep cooking it until they're really broken down. Depends on the sort of the finished texture you're looking for. Tiny bit of orange juice in the cooking process, and then we're gonna finish it with some fresh segments.
There's quite a lot of natural pectin in cranberries. So to be quite honest, this is one of those things that you could easily do. I mean, it's happily sit in your fridge for about a month. So doing this on Christmas Day might be a bit of a stretch, but then again, I do like the way it sort of smells and fills the house, and it is very easy to do. Any of these carcasses that you've got from segmenting, just squeeze those in, don't waste them.
Okay, so our veg has been roasting now for about 10 to 15 minutes. So I'm gonna pull it out, just give it a little check on all of it, make sure, see how it's going. So parsnips. Look at that. Again, we're not gonna try and move them yet, because you wanna make sure they're crispy, but as you can see, they're crisping up lovely. Again, so I'm going to turn the temperature down slightly now because we've achieved that crust. Now, when they're ready to move, they will move to sort of 190, 185, and then give them another 15 minutes. Carrots are looking good. See, the carrots are a bit more simple to cook, but we're going to give those a little toss. And then lastly, the potatoes, because that's what we're looking for around all the potatoes. Again, they're probably not quite ready to be turned yet. I'm walking away. What's your favourite Christmas song, Chef?
What's that one? Now that you have to go away. E17, yeah. E17.
I'm a bit more a Major fan. Major cheddar.
I don't even understand that reference.
From Gavin and Stacey. Uncultured.
Hey, where are you going? Get back here, you.
Hey.
All right, so all of the moisture has evaporated from our red cabbage. It's nicely cooked, it's nice and tender. The last stage is just to add in some red currant jelly. So I'm adding in basically a whole jar of red currant jelly. This is another thing that only seems to come out at Christmas. So use a sherry vinegar, even use a nice balsamic if you've got it. It's just gonna give it a bit of acidity. Allow that red currant jelly to really melt and glaze everything together. And then add in a touch of sugar just to finish it. Also gonna add a tiny pinch of salt. So all of that's glazed. I really don't want to cook it for that much longer when I've got the vinegar in there. So now it's just about bringing it together, and then the lid will go on, ready to reheat later. As you can see with the cranberry sauce, they've started to break up now, which is perfect. Just keep it moving. Make sure it doesn't start to stick, and then turn it on. I'm putting it on a fairly high heat now to cook down. So as you can see, this has got this it's getting this almost jammy consistency. So just keep reducing it. All those shallots are broken down nicely and it's getting quite syrupy. I know that basically my gravy is starting to look a little bit thicker. So it's got this fairly sort of gravy-like consistency. And I don't massively need to cook it in there with the leftover bone. So if you think about it, the more you cook it with those bones, when you come to pass it off, the more you'll lose in the final gravy. So you want to try and take it off just before you think that the consistency is looking, in any way finished. Once you've reduced it, you might decide you want to thicken it slightly, and we can also decide that when it's closer to the final cooking time. Just passing off those fine herbs out of there. And then Jack, do you want to whack in those roasting juices? So all the resting juices go in as well.
You don't want to go away. So
that gravy is just going to tick along until we're ready to serve. We want it to keep tasting it, make sure that we're happy with the flavour.
Okay, so our next sauce we're going to be doing is bread sauce. So we're going to be doing a slight twist on a classic spiced bread sauce. So we're going to start off by decrusting and making some, doesn't even need to make breadcrumbs, some just chunks of stale white bread with no crust. I'm going to get the infusion on. So we're going to infuse some milk and cream. We're going to take a banana shallot, and we're just going to slice it nice and thin and sweat it on a high heat. Now we're not going to caramelize it down. And then to that, once it's sweated lightly, it should take about 8 to 10 minutes. We're going to add a little bit of sliced garlic, just roughly chopped. We're gonna chop up our hard herbs, so that was the rosemary and the thyme, just to extract maximum flavor. We're trying to get as much flavor out of these ingredients in as short amount of time as possible.
Do the Americans eat bread sauce, or is it just a UK thing?
I don't know.
What do you think, Rach?
Fuck that shit, man.
This is quite a UK thing, and it only seems to make an appearance once a year as well, so it's like the turkey. Very traditional.
The next thing we're gonna add is some black peppercorns, just a generous pinch of black peppercorns, and then some coriander seeds. Sort of a small handful of coriander. So these parsnips have been in the oven now for about 30 minutes. So now you can see that now they're removing themselves from the bottom of the tray. So I'm just gonna go around and just gently flip any of the ones that are ready. Still probably need around another 15 to 20 minutes, but we're just gonna turn them lightly, turn our oven down, got to do that first, to around about 170. And the carrots we're gonna take out. Nice and soft, nice bit of color on them. These are in the oven for a grand total of 30 minutes, and they're going to be placed aside, ready to reheat later on.
So we've got our softened shallots here, base for our bread sauce. All of our chopped herbs and aromats go in there. So we've got around about 2 litres of milk going in, roughly about 1/6 of the amount of double cream to milk, just to add a bit more richness into it. And then we want to bring this up gently to the boil and infuse it. Our little final stage of our cranberry sauce is ready. So what we've got is, you can see that basically when you pull it apart, it basically doesn't come back and join in the middle. It stays nice and separate. Just add in these orange segments and they'll soften nicely, and we can set that aside. Whack it straight in the bowl already. You still get these really nice, almost like partially whole cranberries. I definitely think it is worth the effort.
So our next job is the labor-intensive job of Brussels sprout. Traditionally, I quite like them in half, but they do take a little bit longer to cook. So what we're going to do is we're kind of just slicing them up sort of into chunky slices. I'd say sort of like 3-4 mil slices. Any which way really, because what we're going to do is we're not going to blanch these. To get a better flavour, we're going to almost sweat them down in butter from raw, in bacon fat, which you get a much nicer result, and they also hold a bit better. Rather than trying to blanch them last minute, you can just get them in a pan, which we're going to show you, with the bacon fat, super flavourful, keeps all the nutrients in there, and then we're just going to finish them with some parsley and some smoked chestnut.
This is the best way to do sprouts, 100%. I don't think we're doing too badly, Chef. I think if you're following along at home, what you should have by now is the bulk of your heavy prep done. You should have a perfect resting turkey. You should have some really beautiful legs, which you still need to colour off. Our parsnips and our potatoes are crisping up, that final last sort of flurry in the oven. And we have all of our garnish pretty much working. We've got our sprouts working right now. The last thing, carrots are out, ready to be glazed. Cauliflower cheese ready to be gratinated.
So a lot of the questions we get from people is all around, how can I cook all these things at the same time? Hopefully we've shown you that you don't need to. You start off with a turkey because that can rest the longest out of everything. So that's out now, and now we've gone in with the high temperature stuff, all of our vegetables basically. When the veg comes out, we're going to transfer that onto a tray, ready to reflash later on, and then we're going to go in with all of our last minute items. So that is going to be our cauliflower cheese to finish off, Yorkshire puddings, because we want those nice and fresh, and the pigs in blankets.
I think you need to be strategic. Ultimately, in your home, you should be, if it's just you, it's going to take you probably about 5 hours, 6 hours. If it's you and a couple of friends, it's going to take you 4 hours, 4.5 hours. And if you clean it up as you go, which is ultimately what you want to be doing, it should be taking you around about 5.5 hours.
If it was me, I would definitely be maximising what I could do the day before. 100%. I'd have all of my veg prep done the day before. I'd have my turkey prep the day before. So that on the day, you can just focus on just the cooking and then the enjoyment. Cooking should be fun.
Okay, so our milk is up to almost like a steam, which is about 80 degrees. So just leave it off to the side now. That's going to infuse for about 45 minutes.
So we've got some chestnuts which Will is slicing there for the sprouts, and then to the sprouts at the end as well, we're going to add some parsley, which we're just going to pick now. Look at them. That is a roast potato if ever I saw one. Oh, look at that, naughty. Okay, parsnips are now looking good. So what I'm gonna do here, just move my parsnips up to one side of the pan. These have been cooking for about an hour. I'm just gonna put it on a slight angle just to remove some of that of the oil from the tray. Just gonna leave it like that for five minutes, and then the oil will naturally filter down to the edge of the tray before we remove the parsnips out. Onto our potatoes. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna give them a final turn before going into the tray with all of our aromats. So it's gonna turn them over. At this stage, you should be able to turn them by hand. They've set nicely. So the parsnips and the potatoes have been both in the oven for about an hour. So I think it's these final steps, these final little touches which make all the difference on a roast. Is that these are great and these would be delicious now, but these final little tips that we're gonna show you now of how to finish everything, I think is what's really can make a roast go from like very, very good to incredible.
We're now gonna turn our attention to the Yorkie puds. And for that, we need a really nice high oven. I actually just put a small amount of oil in each of my molds. If you put too much oil, you get this almost like cauliflower effect where it hits the oil and then spreads out. So I've just got a small amount of oil in each mold. This is just to stop it sticking. And then we want to whack it into a 220-degree oven. So 220, we're going to preheat those molds for around about 10 minutes.
I'm just going to smash some garlic very gently. Not a crazy amount, probably around about six cloves into my potatoes. A couple of sprigs of rosemary.
So at the same time as I put my molds in, I'm just going to whack in my pigs in blankets as well. They can take a nice high heat pigs in blanket, so you can go at 220 and then we can rest them. So all of that veg is ready to go. It's on the side. Potatoes need a little bit longer, but they'll go in basically as we're doing all of the finishing touches. So last thing that's going to come out of the oven will be those spuds. And then whilst we preheat our mold, I'm just going to put the Yorkie mix into a jug. It's really important that you get a nice pour on the Yorkie mix. So what most people don't do is they don't taste their Yorkie mix. It should be nicely seasoned even when it's raw.
We've got everything ready to a point where it's a stage where we can finish it close to the time. Potatoes are 80% there, veg is 90% done, cauliflower cheese is ready to go in the oven, cabbage is done, turkey is rested. So we've got a couple of fresh elements in the oven before we start finishing. This is what your kitchen counter should look like on Christmas Day.
So just turning our attention to the gravy, remove any of the excess oil or scum that comes to the surface. So just a light skim. I'm just using a little metal spoons. And it's important you taste this throughout. And taste this now and see, because it might just need, you might need to stop it and thicken it up there if it's nice and intense. Delicious. Really nice and sweet. Just keep that reducing until basically just a little bit more intense, and then we'll thicken it up. Okay, so now we're going to put our Yorkies in the oven. So this is all about speed. Make sure you close your oven door so it doesn't let out the heat from the oven. And you don't want to put too much mix inside your molds. You basically want them to be about a third filled up. What you will find if you don't do this is you'll find that they will struggle to rise because they sort of collapse in on the weight of themselves. So there we go, halfway, 2/3 up to the side and then into the oven, nice and quick, not to release the heat from there. Tiny bit of oil and a little bit of bacon into my pan. This is just going to start rendering down so I get a load of bacon fat to cook my sprouts in. As we wait for our Yorkies, this has had a good 40 minutes to infuse. Just pass this really beautiful aromatic milk onto the bread. Depending on how thick you like it, you want to add enough bread to thicken it at this stage.
Okay, so Yorkies have been in for a while now, looking good. So we're going to take those out. They're nicely risen, crisp all the way around. 15 minutes in the oven. And we give them a little check over all the way around, make sure they're nice and crisp all the way around.
Piggies out. Nice and crispy, nice and golden. So roughly about 20 minutes for your pigs in blankets.
We're going to set those onto our prep bench and we're going to place our turkey leg back into the oven. A little touch of oil just over the bacon skin just to help it crisp up nicely. Into an oven, we're going to set that at 200 degrees and start it off 15 minutes and see how we look after that. At the same time, I'm going to place my potatoes back in for those aromats to roast into that oil. Oven's at 200 degrees. Turkey's legs are back in, potatoes are back in.
Okay, so our bread sauce, we prefer to have it like, you know, not too like set. So basically it should be the consistency of like a horseradish cream. So if you wanted to get it a little bit thicker, you could cook it out slightly. But at the moment, that is the perfect serving consistency.
Finish it with a few knobs of butter for richness and shine. Salt, pepper. So I'm going to go over to the stove, and our bacon that was sweating off, and now we're going to add our sprouts to the bacon. So our bacon fat is all here roasting. So I'm just going to go in with some sprouts. We're just going to place the lid on them and give them a stir every few minutes.
Final thing is just a little pinch of nutmeg. And then this can go covered straight into the serving dish, ready for the table. Cover with tin foil so it doesn't get too much of a skin.
I forgot, we're going to put we can put the cauliflower cheese in at the same temperature as the potatoes and the turkey leg. So I'm going to pop that in there now. That should take around about 25 to 30 minutes. To my carrots and parsnips here, just going to spread them out lightly. At this stage you can mix them all together, and then we're just going to drizzle this with honey, ready to finish off through the oven when one of those things comes out the oven. So probably like a generous tablespoon. As that honey heats, it will then loosen and sort of turn all oily, and it will mix with the oil in the tray to form a lovely glaze. So Will's going to focus next on finishing our red cabbage and finishing the gravy. And when we say finishing, it's sort of a chef term by where you add your final seasonings to an element of a dish. So for the gravy, we'll be adding a little bit of acidity, tasting it to get that final balance of saltiness, sweetness.
So for me, this gravy, just one final skim, is a really perfect consistency. I don't like a really, really thick gravy. It's got a really nice depth to it. It's got a beautiful shine to it. If you want it thicker than this, you could add in a beurre manier or a cornflour slurry. But actually, what I really like about this is that, you know, it's going to coat all the vegetables really nicely, but it's not going to overpower the whole dish. It should be nice and thick, probably about the consistency of like a restaurant sauce, a hit of Dijon mustard. So just take some of your gravy base out, add in some Dijon. I had a good squeeze of lemon to this slurry as well. And then we add in our Dijon mustard and our lemon juice into the gravy. So I'm going to leave this off the heat now, because I've got my lemon juice and I've got my Dijon in there. Before I serve it, I'm just going to whisk it to make sure that all of the fat is incorporated into it. So a nice bit of heat on these sprouts. Just keep turning them over. Should have this beautiful aroma. I've just taken the lid off, so some of the steam will go, and then we can turn the heat up on them a little bit. So my red cabbage has been resting. So I'm now just returning that back to the heat. And as you can see, a lot of the liquid that we added last minute has started to come out. So what we want to do now is just bring this back up to the temperature and glaze it up. So we should have both of our pans going.
Okay, so my potatoes are now coming out of the oven. You can see the herbs have nicely caramelized, the garlic is blistered. They're looking super crispy and delicious. So again, what I'm going to do here, move my potatoes to one end, place my root vegetables into the oven to glaze up. That'll take about 5 minutes or so. Just want the honey to melt. Put my potatoes on a slight angle so that they're not sitting in oil and they remain crispy. That's going to mean that we get all that flavour, but the oil is drained off from the potatoes. So then, next up, the turkey leg is going to come out, and we're going to look to glaze that up. So the bacon's nicely crisped up. We're now going to cover that with some honey. And at the same time, we're going to put our chipolatas, or pigs in blankets, onto the tray to get glazed up as well. While that's being glazed, our turkey crown is going to go into the oven for a little blast, just to crisp up the skin. Cauliflower cheese is about 10 minutes off, so we're going to leave that in there. So this oven's set to 195. We're going to put a timer on for 8 minutes. So this is our turkey leg and pigs in blankets, just ready for a little finishing glaze. Those will take around 8 minutes. So once one of these items comes out, we'll go back in with that turkey leg before we start getting ready to plate. It's all just about managing that one oven and just getting everything finished off to the perfect degree. We've got all three elements on the stove. That's gravy, red cabbage and sprouts all on the stove. Just waiting for one more slot so we can finish off the honey glaze on the turkey.
Okay, so sprouts at this stage, hitting it with a good amount of black pepper. Loads of nice fresh black pepper. Chestnuts go in. Nice hit of fresh parsley at the end. So these sprouts have basically been cooking now for 22 minutes. And then all of our last sort of seasonings are gonna go in. So the beautiful chestnuts, really nice fresh parsley, and then we're just gonna season to taste. They can just stay warm somewhere. And then our red cabbage is at a critical stage as well. It's really nicely glazing up now. That red currant is really just reducing and glazing up the cabbage beautifully. Keep it on the heat for an extra, what, 3 or 4 minutes until no loose water is there. This is probably total cooking time, about an hour and a half, so it's not something to be sort of underestimated.
The collie cheese is coming out. Turkey legs going in. And we are 5 minutes away from service.
Okay, so turkey has had about 4 or 5 minutes. So remember, it'll still be warm on the inside. So it's quite critical that we don't overcook it at this stage. To think about carving whilst everything else gets dished up.
Okay, Will's got his sprouts here. Nice, vibrant, smoky from the chestnut and the bacon. I'm gonna grab another serving dish. While Will's putting the sprouts in, I've just got our Yorkie puddings. We can just spread those around a nice big plate. Do you want porky Yorkies?
What does that even mean?
So our honey glazed vegetables have come out, looking sexy. So I'll leave those here for Will to plate.
Just add on a little bit of flaky salt to finish. So nice and crispy, these parsnips, banger. So we've got this beautiful glazed red cabbage. You can see it's very glossy, very shiny. No loose water left inside that mix whatsoever.
Oh, that's money. There you go, chef, check out them bad boys. While it's come out of the oven, I'm just gonna pour a bit of that glaze over and we're gonna let this rest for 5 minutes, just while we carve the breast. It's already been rested, so it doesn't need to rest again as much.
Still nice and warm, so we wanna work fairly quick. But we basically just go down the breastbone. And this is like the moment of truth, really. You wanna see a good amount of moisture. So once you've got this far in, slightly pull it away to find the joint, and then just follow your knife down to release the breast. So typically what I would do is I would just carve half the breast, leave the other half on the crown, and then if you need some more, just carve the rest of it a little bit later on. So typically, like, this is perfect, so juicy, really nice and sexy. And then once you've got the whole breast like this, just go all the way down. Nice thin slices. And then we'll just place this all onto your plate. And remember, it's brine, so it doesn't need a huge amount of salt. Just gonna add a little bit of flaky salt onto the top, more just for texture.
So Will's just carved the breast there, so next we're gonna carve our leg into nice sort of 1 centimeter slices. As you can see there, you've got a beautiful soft turkey. A little bit of stuffing just adds, the stuffing adds a really nice shape to the leg, and always the end bits for the chef. Just give it a little taste. So again, you can save your other little leg there with your with the rest of your breast.
And then just before serving, add your gravy into nice warm jugs. Make sure you got plenty of gravy so people can keep going back for more. Everybody always forgets the cranberry sauce. So 4 hours, 6 minutes. And you know, the only job that they had to do before would have been the brining the turkey. So you could even streamline this and make it even easier, I would say.
You could lose 1 or 2 elements, but equally you could also add 1 or 2 elements. So I think we've shown exactly how it can be done. You can follow along at home. If you want to pause it to deep dive into one of the elements in a bit more detail, you can, but hopefully this is a real good reference for how you can make Christmas dinner this year. Oh, I don't like any of my things to touch.
Look at that beautiful turkey. Oh, that is actually stunning. Nice little bit of the brown meat roll for you there.
Well, if you've made it this far and you're still watching at home, I hope your roast turned out well and you're proud of them. We're gonna get stuck into ours. I like a bit of gravy everywhere. I just like it in one place.
It's kind of got to lubricate the entire meal, hasn't it?
I like it on the meat and then let that naturally pull. I like to sometimes put like little holes in my potatoes and then pour the gravy over so it like seeps in.
Oh, this looks so good. I'm going to go in with the turkey first. It's the whole combination, even the cranberry.
Oh, cauliflower cheese, man. That is a dark horse.
Oh,
Yeah.
and I would say it's pretty much essential to do the brining of the turkey. Merry Christmas, chef.
Hey, Merry Christmas to you and your family. Yet again, on top. What do you get if you cross an apple with a Christmas tree? Come on, got this one.
I don't know.
A pineapple.
Ah!
Merry Christmas.